Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to the Marriage is Tougher Than Woodpecker Lips podcast. This is Brian, joined by my co-host, Paul. We'd like to welcome you to a community meant for the men of the world to share their thoughts and perspectives on marriage. We can learn from each other's experiences and help each other be better husbands. This week on the pod, we want to talk to you about belief versus non-belief. We'll tell you exactly what we mean as soon as we get into the episode.
And before we get all the way in, I'd just like to say, for those of us, this is your first time, welcome. If you've been rocking with us for a while, thanks for coming back. If you'd like to dig deeper on this conversation, please search Marriage is Tougher on any social media platform, or you can go to marriagestougher.com, click the contact form, and then fill it out. You can also do that if you'd like to be a guest. We'd love to have you. And if you have a topic you'd like to talk through or walk through with us, we do that. And we'll reach out to you and get you on the pod. We really appreciate you. If you take any value of this, please share it with a friend or share it with someone that you think would benefit from this. And if you're following us on YouTube, like, share, subscribe. If you're getting in the pod, please leave a review wherever you listen to your podcast. We appreciate you. All right, let's get into the show.
Okay. So I want to start off by reading the note on this topic idea that we had. And just for the audience's sake, it'll be probably the best way we can explain what we're about to talk about. So the note reads, do you believe your marriage can be successful? Do you believe you can be the man you want to be, the man she wants and loves, a contributor, a friend? And then a little bit of a tongue twister, but so hang in there. Do you believe you can do anything? And that takes me to a very specific place, especially that last line. Do you believe, or maybe even, do you still believe you can do anything? Right? Because that's like a childhood feeling, right? Oh, I just saw somebody else do that. I can do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can be anything I want to be. Or does reality set in and like, wow, that's a lot harder than I expected it to be? And then the second place my mind goes is, do we as married couples have enough conversations about expectations and the things we want out of our relationships that make this conversation viable? Or do we just hop into marriage and say to ourselves, we should be able to do it, we'll figure it out?
That's a lot.
It is. It is a lot. That is fair.
That is a lot. I think to speak to the latter part, I think a lot of us just hop into marriage. We might give some thought, if we have any older or people that have been married longer with you, and we actually take the time to, have a sit down, some coffee and a meal with them before we get married, that might have it. If we do any marital coaching or counseling, that might give it. But a lot of times it's our thought space is not there. By the time we decide we want to get married, it's now wedding, and not
Right.
marriage.
Right.
So I think we do ourselves a disservice. And then there's the stages of marriage, right? That, honeymoon phase, which is, all right, let's figure out what that means. For those of us that, it's different, I think, and you can speak it on your perspective, but I think it's different, if you haven't lived together yet, that's the adjustment period, whether you have kids or don't have kids before you get married, joining your family or just joining two people together, that's an adjustment period. So you're not really thinking, can I do anything? Am I going to be everything that it's more like, okay, we're in this, like now we got to do this. So I don't think there's as much, I'm sure some people do, right? Because there's always outliers, but I think there's not as much thought in, I can be this person.
Yeah.
But then it's also, do I even know to want to be this person?
Yeah.
Right. Have I seen that? Have I thought about it at all? Probably not. So.
Oh, I like that. Okay. All right. So I'm going to bring another piece into the conversation. And it's taken me back to the idea of being a fair weather Christian.
Okay.
All right. It is real easy to praise God when you feel like you are at this very moment in his favor,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, won't he do it? Right.
Right. Yep.
And then life takes a turn and you're like, maybe sitting there for a little bit, right? Like, all right, I'm a grind. And then your blessing may come a little bit later than you expected.
Mm-hmm.
It gets a little bit harder to be the full Christian you were when it was fair weather.
Right.
So, right, I'm thinking to myself, are we fair weather married?
Whew.
Right? When everything's good and smooth and things are falling into place, it's a lot easier to praise our wife and hug her and kiss on her and give her the affection that she needs and the affection that we want to give her. And then when we get into those moments of contention, right, rather than doing the work to get through the murky waters, if we're not well practiced or versed in doing so, we kind of sit on the sidelines and wait for fair weather to come again rather than fixing it, right? So it's this like belief or non-belief.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe that even in the times of struggle you still need to give to others?
Whew.
The times where I don't have as much as I used to have, but I still have someone in front of me who's in need. That's it's hitting home right now. I apologize.
No, yeah, I mean that is a great thought process. And I think it all comes back to expectations,
Mm,
right? We go into our marriages a lot of times not expecting things to turn unfavorable, I'll
yeah,
say, right? Like it's we totally forget our pre-marriage life, right? Like we have a whole history of like life is not always going to be amazing.
right.
It's not always going to be great. There are going to be some times where it sucks. Why do we not equivalate life experience to be life experience, right? Like we're now going to have to experience that with this person that we choose. And what's that going to look like, right? So if we expect the roses
Mm,
and the sushi and the all these amazing things, but not realizing that it's going to be tough. Like there's going to be some dirt, there's going to be some grime, there's going to be some, you know, I don't know, chitterlings, I don't know.
ah,
There's going to be some. I'm like, what's the opposite of sushi? But
no, not the chillings.
but what I'm saying is we have history before we got married that not everything goes well. And the first moment or in the moments where it's not well in our marriage, it's like we we don't know what to do sometimes. We don't think that's going to happen. Now, if you expect and plan, then you can get through that in a better way. And obviously, if you have an anchor in the Lord, which is bigger than yours,
Mm,
that always aids, but not always. It always in the end, but it doesn't always initially. If
yeah,
we have to remember, we have to remember that it's not always going to be the way it is forever.
right. I'm thinking doubt is natural, right? Even in our Christianity, we have doubts throughout our life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's natural to doubt certain things or aspects about your marriage. But again, to your point, right, there is the belief that we start off with, one that we can do anything, one that how do I want to say this, that we can get through anything. But where I guess we're kind of bringing faith into the conversation, right? Like seeing isn't believing. Is that what I'm trying to say here? Like,
I think, yeah, it's the trust factor, right?
yes.
Because usually doubts go away as trust is proven,
Hmm.
right? Or yeah, I'll say that. And I think there's that history of going through hard things with your wife makes it
That part.
easier to go through hard things as they come in the future, right? So the first couple times that you do hard things, you may have belief that it will go one way and it doesn't, and
Hmm.
that can now put seeds of, I mean, I don't really trust that it's going to go the way it should. And then you just work through that in your marriage. And I think like you said, everything's going good. It's like, how do you stand when it's not?
Yeah.
And if you've never talked about that with your wife, if you've never really gone through anything of that magnitude, whatever the heart is, before in general, you may be acting like you've never seen yourself act,
Hmm.
right? And I think pride happens, or pride can happen real fast in marriage if you want to save face, look a certain way in this hard time, instead of being vulnerable, being like, this sucks, I don't know what to do, we need to come together and figure this out. But if you feel like I have to have all the solutions, my spouse can't see me, frustrated or angry, or, not knowing what to do, that can also contribute to um, that struggle. And then we're not believing that we can get through these things.
Yeah. Man, I just had a fantastic idea. How often, if ever, do you document your marriage? I'm thinking about how we have the Bible and how it documents the life of Jesus, right? And that is a huge aid in our belief.
Mm-hmm.
If we were to document our trials and tribulations, the things that we've been through, how we got through them, um, in those areas of doubt, if we had something to fall back on, and it wasn't just memories, but um, a documentation of how we got through tough things together that we can go back to and lean on, like more or less like letters to each other,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think that could be a huge win for a marriage, especially if you get into trouble, right? Like, do we still believe in our marriage? Why should we believe in our marriage? Well, let's go through our letters that we wrote to each other, and maybe the letters are, thanking each other for uh, not trying to ignore an issue, right, and actually working through it. Maybe it's documenting some of the things you did in therapy together. Maybe it's documenting a tough parenting moment. All the things really, but do you know of anyone who does that currently? Do you have any examples that?
I don't,
No, me
but
me
that
either, man.
sounds
It sounds
amazing.
a good idea.
And it's that, or you can do it together or separate, right? It's that closing conversation, it's that debrief once you get past
Mm, yeah,
even that conversation, because sometimes that conversation just happens in, not in passing, but you don't realize you're in that conversation until you're having it.
right,
Right?
right.
But then going back and, like you said, documenting, writing a letter to each other, thanking each other, one that just breeds gratitude,
Hmm.
and it breeds seeing your spouse in the correct light that you should see them,
Yeah,
right? And it brings appreciation and value. um, that's something that I got to figure out how to implement for sure.
yeah. So something that my wife and my oldest daughter are doing right now is they're passing back and forth a journal every day. So they're just writing to each other, and like they've almost gamified it, which is a funny way to put it. But like if my wife is expecting Shy to pass the book back and she hasn't yet, she's like, "Yo, what are you waiting for? Let's go!" And then like she runs off to her room and she writes, and then she goes in our room, puts it on her pillow or on the corner of the bed or whatever, you know. And I'm like, man, what if a couple were to do that? Just
Yeah.
message journal back and forth, right? Pillow to pillow. Here's what I'm grateful for about you today, right? Like just building your wife up and um by the way, like this is the best way you could love me this week. This is what I need,
Ooh, that's good.
you know? And here's what I'm struggling with. Like imagine that communication. Because it's I think for me personally, it's so much easier to put it on paper, right? Here's what's been
For sure.
rolling around in my head. I know 80% of this isn't real, but I just wanted to get it out so you know that it was on my mind.
Hmm.
And, you know, this is me calling out for some reassurance that we're okay, or that this is going to be okay, or that we're going to get to this next goal. Right. And then maybe you find out that she's had the same concerns, but you hadn't been talking about it. And so this can start the conversation. I got to put this into practice, bro.
I mean,
'Cause I
that
think,
that is right along the lines of that helps the belief,
mm,
right? Of it's prioritizing, okay. If you're doing that, there's no way you cannot believe that you can be successful in your marriage, right? Because it's literally telling your spouse what you need, what you want. Um, so there's not like guesswork of it,
mm-hmm,
right? Because I believe I can be the most successful if I have a plan, if I have, steps to get to whatever it is. Like if I have specific steps there, I'm like, oh yeah, I literally can do anything if I have the steps. If I see the process, that's how I know if I can do it or not, right? It
right.
may be hard. I may fail at some steps in it, but like once I have the end goal, that's good. If you were to pass this back and forth and really be open and vulnerable, like that intimacy allows you to be seen and to see.
Mm-hmm,
And that is connection is the best way to be successful in your marriage
right.
because you feel you have that trust that we talked about earlier. And then you can do hard things.
Yeah, man. I'm thinking about just how much that would do for the friendship aspect of a marriage, right? Like, how much could you get to know more about your spouse by practicing that? Um, I don't see anything bad about this idea right now.
Yeah, I mean it's the thoughts that we have that we can actually share, right? Because a lot of times our thoughts are just that and they're gone.
Mhm.
And then you don't think about, like, oh, let me be open and share what I'm thinking about or going through or where I feel like I'm insecure, so I might need some help. But
Right.
all that is who we are. And it's just a lot of times we just keep it in our head because we don't take the time to slow down and realize what's going on with us. We're
Yeah.
distracted. And so this is a way to focus on our
Mhm.
marriage, focus on us, which in essence helps us focus on our marriage.
Yeah. And I think it provides an avenue as well for us to have conversations about what's real and what's not real, right? We could have a million different feelings about certain things, and we open ourselves up to a different perspective,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, hey, I felt this way about what you said on this day. Like, I'm not really sure why it hit me so hard or why I got triggered. Is this what you intended? Right? Like, it was tough for me to say this to your face, but I'm going to put it here on these pages. hoping for a response soon, right? Then maybe she comes back and says, um, I'm so sorry that you took that way. That's not how I intended it at all, right? My intentions are only or purely to build you up. Um, and I apologize maybe for saying that in the way that I did, but I also know that you can be better in this space. I believe that you can do that, and whatever encouragement you need to do those things, I'm here for. But let's move forward. And I think that's just a great space for all types of conversations, or even just starting the conversations. But like I said originally, the documentation piece of that process of getting through the hard things is amazing. I really want to try this. I really do.
Agreed. I think, yeah, going back to your point about documenting would lead to, I think it's vice versa. You could lead with, let's just pass this back and forth, or you could lead with, or I think what you can start with is documenting going back to something that you've gone through hard and documenting how you've done that. And even in that conversation, that now leads to the different perspectives. What happened? How do we do this? And that might be different.
Yeah,
But then having a source of truth, and you know what this is also amazing, as leaving a legacy for your kids.
I was just thinking that.
And just like giving this as a gift to, like, okay, um, if you do this, like, you can write it down, but maybe take some pictures, present it to your kids as they're getting married. Like,
Yeah,
hey, this is what we've been through. This is how we've done it. Um, and this is kind of our marriage docs, how you get through things, right?
yeah,
We might be onto something, bro.
that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's solid.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Because I'm also thinking, uh, at the time a spouse dies, to be able to review something like that is, mm,
Which is and that's like at any level, right?
yeah,
Say say a life is seemingly cut short.
hmm,
That's amazing to have those docs. Say you're
right,
married for 50 years and you're 80 in your 80 or 80s and you have that. That's amazing to either way.
yeah,
Even just one documentation
right,
is amazing. But being able to build off that is fantastic. And to be able to look at, and like you said in the beginning, like, okay, we're having some issues, we're having some troubles. Let's go back to the docs. Like, what works?
yeah,
What have we been through? What do we need? Like, what? And you should just keep that on the forefront. That does breed to the thought that we can do anything because you have history,
yeah,
tangible history of getting through things.
man, just just an encyclopedia of your marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-mm-mm. I don't got nothing else, man. I'm thinking about now how to implement this, and how bougie I want to get with it. I want to get like unlined
Yeah.
parchment leather back.
Yeah. I feel that. That's the docs, man. I think, yeah, nothing else to say. Thanks for hanging out with us in this conversation. It kind of went a little different way than we thought it would be. But we pray that you got some value out of this. If you did, please let us know. Go to Marriage is Tougher on any social media channel or any outlet that you have, or you can go to marriagestougher.com, hit the contact form, and leave us a message there. We really do appreciate you spending time. We value your time, and we know that you could be listening to anything else or watching anything else besides this. So we appreciate you, and have a great day. And until next time.
Peace.